they'll sign on and say okay, but they don't play by the same
and they
rules.
continue to block everything that we seek to do as far as sanctions in the Security Council of the United Nations.
Now let me tell you a story, and this is last night I went home after hearing this story from a woman who's just returned from Israel. She was born and raised in a town in Israel in the mountains, so she's an Israeli, now an American citizen, married, raising her family here in America, adult children now, and an entrepreneur, a hardworking person, originally lived in Philadelphia, now lives in Southern Florida. She went back home for a visit, and the primary industry in the town that she's from is there's a factory, a military defense factory. And most of the people work in that factory, in one capacity or another. They're engineers on the high end and they're labor on the low end. And people are flipping out in her town because large cancellations have come down from the Obama administration. Weapons and defense contracts have been canceled to Israel, whose economy is based on, in large degree,
defense
technology.
Okay.
Yes. They also, her claim was that they got the word that this huge contract they had with Turkey had been canceled because America had put pressure on Turkey not to complete this contract. So, of course, trust but verify, is how I operate. And I spent about 2 hours last night in the middle of the night online trying to find out as much information as I could. And you know what? It appears accurate that contracts have been canceled in Israel because the Obama administration is trying to pressure Israel to stop building settlements. And they have very few methods that'll work because Benjamin Netanyahu is not listening to them. But this will work.
It does work. And what a lot of people don't understand is that your economy is part of your national power. And there are means by which you can attack your economy and you can bring down a nation's power. Look at what China's doing. China is in an economic war with the United States of America right now. They're winning. They have this huge trade surplus, which is leading toward them building a huge blue water navy. They're holding so much of our debt. And when you look at what's happening in Greece, if we continue to have this big debt, if we continue with the entitlements that we offer and they continue to grow and grow and grow, when that number of 47% not paying federal income taxes grows to 50%, God help us if it becomes 55%. And then
it has to. The path that we're on right now. Yeah. If you believe, and I believe, that they want amnesty as quickly as possible,
and there's a reason why,
you end up with another 12 to 20 million people, many of whom will be dependent on social programs and government. So you've already taken that 47% figure and elevated it at least to 50% and probably higher.
And I went back and did some research. It was about 30 years ago that percentage that is now 47% was only about 12% 30 years ago. And it is growing.
Really? Well, because the last numbers that I was able to verify were 18%, and that's substantially less.
It's substantially less. So, once again, you have a deliberate path of growing more victims and more people dependent upon social welfare programs and the government. And eventually, when you get to the state where you see Greece is, we already have states in this country like that, being in California, New York, New Jersey. And so, if this continues to spread throughout our nation, then next thing you know, you will see people that will come out and
they're
say...
They're going to riot.
I
told, I heard Stuart Varney, I played a sound clip where he said, well, we're not going to go to violence even though we have states breaking down. Well, yeah, as long as the states breaking down are the left coast of California and New York...
But see, Stuart Varney is speaking as a suit-wearing, tie-wearing kind of guy that's removed from this. The people...
He's pretty smart.
Yeah, but...
He's right on the money.
No, but Stuart Varney is not the everyday person that all of a sudden is not going to get their government check.
But he knows that system. He understands what that's done in Europe. He's evaluated
it,
but I think he's wrong about
the most unpredictable thing on this earth is human nature.
Yeah.
If you drive people to that brink, as you see in Greece, where you're telling them all of a sudden you're not going to get something, you cannot predict what a person's going to do.
Well, I think you're right, and I think you can predict what a certain person is going to do. You will be able to contain the entitlement class in the Northeast. You'll be able to contain it on the left coast because they will, those producers don't care. how much you take. I mean, I've had my children, my son tell me, the day may come where they take 80% of my income, so I'll just have to make that much more.
Well,
okay.
But still,
many of us would say when that day comes, I'm making nothing.
You're making nothing. And the whole point is, then what is the incentive for the production class to go out and produce? There is none. And so that's why every time socialist economic theory has always led to the collapse of a society. And when you add it on with the fact that we have people now that don't even believe in the rule of law, where they're willing to stand up, they want a borderless, lawless society, we're heading down the road that can be very detrimental to the future of this constitutional republic.
No question. Questions for Colonel West, 877-850-8585. That's the number, 877-850-8585. I look carefully. I don't try to convince my listeners that I don't pay attention to what's relevant to any particular district. And District 22 is a unique district. It is one of the districts that's least affected in many ways right now by the jobless rate.
Yeah.
My producer, who is smart, this morning on the phone said to me, well, if the jobless rate is up and there were more jobs created, how does that work? And, and the part of the equation that a lot of people don't understand is, joblessness is a Kodak moment.
It is snapshot.
A snapshot of a long-term trend.
Yes.
And you're into trend analysis, so am I. And when I look at the jobless rate, and what we don't get to see is the amount of entrepreneurial efforts that have closed up.
Yeah.
Gone. Shopping center after shopping center that I drive by.
All you got to do is US 1.
It's
Go up and down
horrific.
US 1, you see it.
It's horrific. People that I know, small business
owners. And that's
owners.
the district. That's my district.
That's your district. And that's what makes it so fascinating is that people don't understand that many of the entrepreneurs in these districts are beginning to crumble. They held on the longest, but they're not going to be able to hold on forever. 877-850-8585. Let's go to Let's go to Fred in Fort Lauderdale. You're on News Talk 850 WFTL.
Hi, Joyce. Colonel West, how are you?
Hey, Fred. How are you doing?
Good. I'd love to hear more from you about the economy here in Southeast Florida. However, when I was listening to the subject just a few minutes ago, what was crossing my mind, and I'd really enjoy hearing your comments on it, is the torpedoing of a naval vessel, man of war, one of the United States' key allies in the northern Pacific, by a North Korean vessel, and the complete lack of response by our State Department, by our president, by the news media, and how that might impact our allies in Israel, Taiwan, and around the world.
Let me tell the audience. Yeah, let me tell the audience what he's talking about. I think it was at the end of March. Mm-hmm. There was a North Korea fired on a South Korean Navy vessel and actually sank it. And it's very interesting. We went the Neville Chamberlain route at that moment, and the president reached out to, I think it was, the Saudi regime. He wanted help from all of these other countries' leaders who are really no friends or allies in as far as South Korea is. So that's, I think, what you're talking about, right?
That is correct. They put 40 sailors on the bottom of the ocean along with the South Korean naval vessel.
Right. I thought it was more like 104 crew members.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's the message that you continue to send, not just to your allies, but to your adversaries. If you can send a message of weakness, you send a message of not being willing to stand up and make a response, then your allies are going to worry about, are you going to be there in time of need? And the adversaries are going to look at what can we grab, what can we take. And that's exactly what you went to a lot of the jihadist websites after what happened in Times Square in New York, and you saw the reactions. And it's all about turning up the heat right now.
Yeah. So, Fred, still there? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, and Alan would still love to hear your thoughts on the local economy and the job issue, and
the big thing
really how our national security affects our economic security.
Well, it is. I mean, people don't understand that, really, we defeated the Soviet Union economically, not militarily. So what we need to have is a strong economy. Here locally, you see the marine industry. I mean, our marine industry should be bolstered to be the number one marine industry in the world. We got to work on that, bringing new technologies in. We have to make sure that we are enabling the local entrepreneurs and businessmen to hire people. We've got to start growing our own talent here in our schools, so they can get out and be part of the producing class of this area.